Before moving on to the story, don't forget to subscribe and like. Have a nice listening time. The old farmhouse stands like a silent sentinel, watching over the barren land it used to embrace with life. What was once a place of warmth and laughter has become a graveyard of memories, an echo of horror that has seeped into its very walls. My name is Emily, and I am the last survivor of the nightmare that unfolded here. I am now 20 years old, but the horrors of my childhood have not faded with time. They have been etched into my soul, shaping who I have become. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind, reminds me of the things I witnessed in that house, the things I was forced to endure. The farmhouse was once a vibrant place, filled with the daily rhythms of farm life. There were the coops with their clucking hens, the barns where the cows were milked, and the sprawling fields that stretched out under the sun. But after the accident, the farmhouse became a dark labyrinth of torment and madness. My mother, Mary, was a strong woman, but the loss of my father tore something fundamental within her. The combine harvester, a beast of iron and steel, had claimed his life, ripping him apart in a violent dance of gears and blades. The shock and grief unraveled her, turning her love into a twisted form of rage and sorrow. My father's father, a frail old man bedridden with age, became the target of her wrath. I remember the day she started her horrific spree. The kitchen, once a place of comfort where my mother used to cook hearty meals, became the site of unimaginable cruelty. The cleaver she used to chop vegetables became the instrument of her madness. The old man's screams filled the house, his feeble protests swallowed by her anger. She hacked him to pieces, the sound of the cleaver meeting flesh and bone reverberating through the night. The blood was everywhere, on the floors, on the walls. And then, she did something even more grotesque. She fed his remains to the dogs, her eyes wild with a mixture of satisfaction and insanity. The animals were her next victims. She seemed to derive a perverse pleasure from their suffering. The chickens, the cows, even the horses, all fell victim to her rage. She killed them with the same cleaver, her methodical approach contrasting sharply with the chaos within her mind. The once lively barn became a charnel house, filled with the stench of death. It was only a matter of time before her attention turned to us, her daughters. I was the youngest, barely old enough to understand what was happening. My older sisters, Rebecca and Sarah, were more aware, and they suffered the brunt of our mother's cruelty. Rebecca was the first to fall victim. I can still see the scene as though it were yesterday. I had been playing in the yard, the sun bright and cheerful, when I heard the screams. I ran inside, but the sight that greeted me was one of sheer horror. My mother was in the bathroom, a place that was supposed to be safe. Rebecca, who had been enjoying a bath, was now fighting for her life. My mother, her face twisted in a ghastly mix of rage and sorrow, held the cleaver. With a swift, cruel motion, she cut Rebecca's throat. The water in the bathtub turned red, mixing with the soap and the remnants of her innocence. I hid in the corner, too terrified to move or scream. Sarah met a different fate. My mother's cruelty had no bounds. Sarah was thrown into the fire, a blaze that crackled and roared as it consumed her. I remember her screams. The sound of them is etched into my memory. The flames danced, casting long, menacing shadows on the walls as if mocking our suffering. I could do nothing but watch, paralyzed by fear. As for me, I was the last. My mother's rage was uncontainable, and she came for me with the same brutal intent. I fought back, my hands trembling as I tried to defend myself. The old rifle, left behind by my father, was my only hope. In the chaos, the rifle discharged. I can still see the look on her face as the bullet struck her, the shock and betrayal written in her eyes. She fell to the ground, lifeless. The room fell silent, save for the crackle of the fire and my ragged breathing. I was left alone, surrounded by the remnants of the horror that had consumed my family. The farmhouse was a mausoleum of my past, its once familiar spaces now transformed into a grotesque tableau of death. I escaped that night, fleeing into the darkness, leaving behind the only life I had ever known. Now, as I walk through the ruins of the farmhouse, the memories flood back. Each room tells a story, each corner a reminder of what was lost. The farmhouse stands as a monument to the madness that once reigned within its walls, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded. I am the last whisper of that place, a survivor of a nightmare that no one else lived to tell. And so, I tell this story not just to remember, but to warn. The darkness that claimed my family could claim others, and the echoes of our suffering must not be forgotten. The farmhouse may be abandoned, but the memories live on, a chilling reminder of the depths of human despair. As I stand among the ruins of the farmhouse, a deep shiver runs through me. The once vibrant place is now a ghostly echo of what it used to be. The walls, stained and scarred, seem to whisper secrets of the past. The silence is heavy, almost suffocating, a stark contrast to the screams that once filled this space. Every step I take reverberates through the empty halls, and each creak of the floorboards reminds me of the footsteps that once hurried through these rooms, fleeing from the terror that consumed us. The rooms where my sisters met their end, the bathroom stained with Rebecca's blood, the charred remains of the fire that took Sarah, they all haunt me. I avoid looking directly at the places where those memories are most vivid. Instead, I focus on the fading light that filters through broken windows, casting long, mournful shadows on the floors. The farmhouse feels like a tomb, holding within it the remnants of a family lost to madness. The old rifle, now rusted and forgotten, lies in a corner where I had left it that fateful night. It is a symbol of my survival, the instrument that ended my mother's rampage. As I pick it up, its cold weight in my hands reminds me of the violence that was forced upon me. I walk through the kitchen, where the cleaver used to be so meticulously placed, now gone, leaving only stains of the past. The barns, once bustling with life, are now eerily silent, their empty spaces a stark contrast to the chaos that once reigned. As I stand in the center of the farmhouse, I make a silent promise to myself. I will carry this story with me, not just as a burden but as a reminder of the strength it took to survive. I will ensure that my family's story does not fade into obscurity. Their suffering, their deaths, they will not be in vain. With a final sorrowful glance at the farmhouse, I turn and walk away, leaving behind the place that holds so much pain. The farmhouse remains a silent witness, a relic of a dark chapter that I must now leave behind. As I step into the light of a new day, I carry with me the weight of the past and the hope that, perhaps, in sharing this story, I can find some measure of peace.